Good morning. All right, so today we are going to build a travel log using React. I just have an idea in my mind of how it's going to look, and we're just going to go with that. Uh, we're going to obviously be using React. We're also going to use some Bootstrap just to handle the bulk of the styling for us. Of course, you can always create your own style sheet and use that style sheet to design your application. I'm going to use Bootstrap. I'm not going to focus on the styling. That's another lesson for another time. The focus for this is simply getting data from another source, and we'll have a data.js file that we'll use. So we'll still be a local file. However, we'll be getting data from another source. So we'll be using that. Also going to use ID to create IDs for these objects. And I want to say that is it. So also we'll be using use effect, use state and use effect, those two React hooks along with use ID. So three React hooks. Anyways, let me share my screen in just a second. Okay, my screen is now shared. Let's get into this. So over in Visual Studio Code, as you can see, I already have uh, a data.js file. In this file, I have all of my locations. Only did 6 locations, so anywhere, so say from like 4 to 8, that's sufficient. I mean, you could obviously do more if you've been to more locations, or even if you haven't been to a lot of places, you can list places that you would like to visit. Okay, but I have these locations here in the data file. Notice here what I'm doing is I'm exporting this array of objects. So I'm saying export default, and then I have my array. I didn't need to name it, just say export default and the array. Here's my objects. I have listed a location, a year, the image URL, a description, and then I also have is favorite true or false, because what I'm thinking what I want to do is perhaps use React icons and have like a little star or heart to indicate that this is one of my favorite locations. This data.js file is sitting in my source folder, and it is a sibling of my app.js, my index.js files, and my components folder. So that's where my data.js file is located. If you need to, you can pause the video right now and go ahead and build up your data.js file. If you need help on how to set up your React project, you can watch the previous video on building out forms, and I slowly walk through setting up a React project. Okay, so I got all that set up. We've done all that. Also, I have my images folder with the images located in there as well. This images folder is sitting inside of my public folder, because in the public folder, that is where all of our static files will go. So the image is a static file. It can't be changed dynamically. So it goes inside of the public folder. All right. And with that being said, again, you can pause the video, set up your data.js file, and then once you do that, you can start now. And we're going to go into index.js. So we're going to start right here. Always start here with index.js. Oh, nope, we don't start index.js. We started where? Thank you all. Index.html. So let's start over here, index.html. So HTML:5 to use HTML5 markup. In the title, I'm just going to put my travel log, Satch Around the World. Okay. Also, as I stated, I'm going to be using Bootstrap, so I'm going to go ahead and find Bootstrap. I'm going to include that CDN. Just going to add that there. And I'm going to go ahead and add the JavaScript bundle as well. Although I don't think we'll need it, it's just sometimes better to have and not need than to need and not have. All right, and now that I've got that done, remember we need to create a div with an ID of root. I'm gonna do that again. Make a little shortcut for those who use Visual Studio Code. Built-in snippet, I can just say hashtag root, and it's gonna create a div with an ID of root. That's a Emmet abbreviation there. Hit tab, and there's my div with the ID of root. Cool, we're good to go. Now we can go to index.js. So let's roll over here to index.js. All right, the first thing I need to do is import React from React. And then I need to say import React DOM. That's a capital D, capital O, capital M from React DOM / client. We want to get that particular location. And then here I can say const root gets document, not document, gets React DOM rather. React DOM dot create root. And this is going to be document that get element by ID root. And the last thing we need to get this thing set up, we are going to say root.render, and I'm just going to put a H1 in here. I'll just say travel log right there. And this is my index.js. Obviously, we're going to add some things to index.js. Like we're going to import app, and we're going to render the app component rather than this H1 element that reads travelog. Okay, once I have this up and running, what I'm going to do is come over here to my terminal. I'm already in my location where I need to be. There you see travelog. So I can run npm run dev. That's the script that I wrote. Oh, maybe it's not. Let's see. I did change. Let me see. Let me try right here. npm run dev. Oh, nope. Let's see. Failed to parse the JSON data. So I have an error here. Okay, so, and there's an issue with my script. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here back into my code. I'm going to look in package.json. And, oh, here's an error. See the error right here. And I failed to see that when I was building this out. But here my build, again, this is a JSON file. Okay, so everything needs to be in double quotes. So it appears that right here, I failed to put a double, close the quote. So now that that's done, my file, my package.json file is fixed. Now and let me go back here and check, make sure I did do dev. I did. So my dev is React script start. That is my script. So now I can come over here, npm run dev, and there we go. It worked out just fine. And here we go. Travelog. Cool. So we're good to go right there. Now what we need to do is we need to get our app going, our app component. So come back here to Visual Studio Code. Here in app.js, I'm going to say const app. And again, we're going to add some things to this. I just always like to make sure that everything is connected before I do anything else. So in return, I do an H1 right here. That just says travelog. And I can't forget to export default app. Always remember to do that. Const app, our arrow, and our return. The JSX components need to be inside of parentheses, okay, when we are returning something. Again, with JSX, there can only be one parent container, and I like to use the fragments. So the angle brackets from HTML without any text in there like div or main container section, what have you. And then I, write my code on the inside. So in other words, what I can't do, React does not like me to do something like this, have these two sibling containers. React's like, no. One parent, okay? So I got my const app return. Here's the H1 travelog, export default app. Make sure your components, again, are capitalized, well, the first letter's capitalized. I got that. Now I can come back over here to index.js. I'm going to import app from app. Okay. And this is ./app. And now I can render the app component here instead of travelog, and I should still see travelog because that is what is inside of app. And there it is. Great. Just for me, just for styling and trying to write code that is clean and very readable, I like to have, as you can see here, my libraries that I'm importing, I like them to be at the top, okay? And I like it to be separate from any components that I am importing. So that's what we have here. We have my React and React DOM library right up here at the top, and then they're separate from my app component because it's only 5 lines of code that I'm actually writing. So the space is good, makes it very legible, very readable. You know what's what and where you can find things. All right. So that's good. I'm going to come over here to app, and this is where we'll be doing a lot of the work. So with this app, I think what I want to do is have a header component with just has an H1 there, just says, travel log, places I travel, maybe a little P tag with a little description. And then we'll have a main component, and the main component will be the home to all of the travel locations. And inside of that, I'm thinking perhaps we could do, maybe a card or a little figure, something that will have a list of all the locations. They're gonna go with cars just because I want to leverage Bootstrap to do some styling for me, building these cards out. Okay, so let's get into this. What I need first is a header component, and so I'm gonna come over here into my components folder. Gonna create a header.js. Okay. And if I wanted to, because I'm gonna go ahead and do main as well. Let's say I wanted to create this folder or this component from the terminal. Okay, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna open up this location here. So I have 2 different tabs for my terminal. So this one is running the server. This one over here, I can structure files and do other things. So here I am. I'm going to type pwd to make sure I am in the correct location. That's what I did. Present working directory, pwd. Make sure I'm in travelog. I am. And so now what I can do is I'm going to make my main component from here. I'm going to say touch, because again, that's the command to create a file. So I'm going to say touch. This is going to go in my components folder, which is inside of source. So I'm going to say touch src for source components / main.js. I hit enter. Come back over here and look inside of source, and Oodalali, there she is right there, my main.js component. Cool. I like to do it like that. It helps me to keep things organized and make sure that file's in the wrong place, because we've all been there where we are building files and stuff in Visual Studio Code, but they're not in the right location. You know, maybe it needs to go up a tree, or up a branch rather, or down one, and we, have issues with that. So I like to do it inside of the terminal, because I know I am knowing exactly where I am putting things. All right. So anyways, here in header, just going to make a simple header, nothing spectacular about it at all, other than the fact that you wrote it, right? So const header, a little arrow, and I'm going to say return. And in here, I'm going to make a header element, give it a class name of header, give it an ID of header. And inside of there, I'm going to put a div with a class name container. And inside of that container, I'm going to do an h1 class name. I'm just going to go with this one. I don't use it a lot. I'll say display -1. Also text capitalize and text -center. And I'm going to call this my travel log. And then underneath that, I'm going to do a p element class name. I'll give it a class name header -text. Also make this text -center. And I'm going to borrow a line from the great Donald Byrd. All the places and spaces I've been. All right. And once I got that, I'm going to export default my header component. Do that with all the components. And, if you know HTML is no different from HTML in the regards of the way that this is structured. Okay. So I got my header element with a div with a container in there, h1, p tag. Okay. And now that I have that, I can come back over to app, and above my component, I'm going to import the header. And instead of this travel log right here, this h1, I'm going to remove that, and I am going to drop in my header component. And I should see, and I do, my travel log, all the places and spaces I've been. And you know what? Just for styling, just because I can, I'm going to italicize my text here. So I'm going to add, I believe it's FST-italic. I believe that's it. Yes, it is. Cool. So I italicize it. And there we go. So that's cool. My header component is completed, and we'll start up main real quick. I'm going to come over here to main. I'm going to say const main. And I'm going to return, just for right now, I'm going to make a main element, class name, main, give it an ID of main, do div for the class name container. And I know I'm going to want to put a row in there. I'm not going to do that right now. I'm just going to get this thing spun up real quick. Just going to make an H2 right here that just reads main. I just want it to be displayed right now. Export default main. What you mean you can't find it? There it is right there. What are you talking about? Let's see. Okay, return. All right. All right, now I'm going to come back over to app. Going to import main and going to add that main component right here. And there it is displayed. And so the cool thing about components, and we're going to see it in a little bit once we start building out these cards, is with a component, I can add the component as many times as I want to, like so, and it will render each time I build. Now, obviously, we're not going to do that. That looks hideous. But you can see that we can write these components up, build our code out there, and then once we import it into another file, we can render that component as many times as we need to. Because, again, a component, a React component, is essentially a function. Okay, and so just like with regular functions in JavaScript, we can call that function anytime and it'll execute. All right. Same thing here with React component, because it is a function, it works the same way, where anytime we make a call, and that's essentially what we're doing here with header and main, we're calling that render, that header component or that main component, and it renders once we call it. Okay, so we're going to stop here, let folks catch up with this, and once we get back to the next video, we are going to start on actually working through app. First thing we're going to do is we're going to use state and use effect to get the data from our data file.